Hello everyone, my name is Thomas Watson and welcome to my YouTube channel, which will feature a 17-part series dedicated to the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence. But before the show begins, I'd like to take a moment to describe how everything unfolded. My love for history began in 1968 with my 8th grade history teacher in Marine City, Michigan by the name of Mr. Bill Amiel. But my true passion for traveling to historical sites and my fascination for the brave signers of the Declaration began on Bicentennial Day, July 4th, 1976, when I saw the original document on its 200th birthday with my good friend, Bob Moldenhauer. That was our first trip together, and Bob and I have been best of friends and travel companions for the past 50 years. When I stood in front of the Declaration of Independence at the National Archives in Washington, D.C., it was a true moment of patriotic pride like I had never felt before, nor have felt since. Ten years later, Bob and I were back on the road, this time to see the Statue of Liberty celebration in New York City on July 4th, 1986. On July 6th, however, we found ourselves in Philadelphia and inside Independence Hall, where the Declaration was signed. On that day, I purchased an authentic replica of the Declaration, along with a book about the 56 signers from the gift shop at Independence Hall. My new goal had begun in Philadelphia, a quest to photograph my copy of the Declaration on the gravesites of all 56 signers. Bob Moldenhauer also purchased the document and joined me in that enormous endeavor to pay tribute to the sacred signers. But what makes those 56 men so important? These individuals, representing the 13 colonies, were lawyers, merchants, and farmers who largely sacrificed their personal fortunes for the sake of establishing a government based on the consent of the governed. By signing that document, those delegates pledged their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, and faced potential execution for treason if the revolution had failed. For the next 5 years, Bob and I picked away at our quest until an idea popped into my head on January 28, 1991. It was time for the two of us to visit the graves of all 56 signers and do it on one non-stop adventure, an adventure to salute the signers of the Declaration of Independence. With no computer or internet or cell phone, I wrote over 100 handwritten letters and sent them to the Chamber of Commerce's all up and down the East Coast in search of information. After I purchased a Rand McNally atlas, I mapped out the entire trip and created an itinerary, one that would complete our mission in 17 days, providing nothing went wrong. Would we need help along the way? When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for two men, bonded together by the common thread of allegiance, to embark on a pilgrimage destined to preserve the glory and tribulation of the honored patriots of freedom, then they should hereby do so without hesitation, without resolve, or without the fear of retribution from friends or foes alike. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that while all men are created equal, our forefathers who pledged their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor shall never be forgotten. Over the course of time and history, their enduring signatures may have faded, but the instrument they so cherish shines as bright today as it did 250 years ago as a true beacon of freedom. Their unselfish acts of bravery and patriotism, unmatched and unrivaled in America before or since, must never be taken for granted nor desecrated by tyranny or terrorism. The documented cause hereafter, done so with the deepest of respect and admiration, is dedicated to preserve for generations the life, liberty, and the pursuit of the sacred signers. With honor, the 56 sacred signers. John Adams, Samuel Adams, Josiah Bartlett, Carter Braxton, Charles Carroll, Samuel Chase, Abraham Clark, George Clymer, William Ellery, William Floyd, Benjamin Franklin, Elbridge Gerry, Button Gwinnett, Lyman Hall, John Hancock, Benjamin Harrison, John Hart, Joseph Hughes, Thomas Hayward Jr., William Hooper, Stephen Hopkins, Francis Hopkinson, Samuel Huntington, Thomas Jefferson, Francis Lightfoot Lee, Richard Henry Lee, Francis Lewis, Philip Livingston, Thomas Lynch Jr., Thomas McKeon, Arthur Middleton, Lewis Morris, Robert Morris, John Morton, Thomas Nelson Jr., William Paca, Robert Treat Payne, John Penn, George Reed, Caesar Rodney, George Ross, Benjamin Rush, Edward Rutledge, Roger Sherman, James Smith, Richard Stockton, Thomas Stone, George Taylor, Matthew Thornton, George Walton, William Whipple, William Williams, James Wilson, John Witherspoon, Oliver Wolcott, George Wythe, Bob and I met up at the City Hall in Marine City, Michigan on May 26, 1991. We chose that starting point as both Bob and I grew up and spent our entire childhoods in that town. We were armed with two 35mm cameras, one video camera, the agenda, our atlas, our documents, and my 1988 Dodge Omni with no air conditioning. It was pure 1990s technology, which also meant no GPS or cell phone. We were pioneers from days gone by, and it was time to depart. Please sit back and enjoy the show. Part 1 begins now. Bob and I posed with our documents at our first site, the historic gazebo on the grounds of City Hall in our hometown. One thing was for certain, we could cut the excitement and anticipation with a knife.
May 26th. These two gentlemen are on their extravaganza. Cross country. And off they go to the Omni. Ooh. Question is, will they make it back alive?
Welcome to downtown Detroit, huh?
Yeah. Hello, goodbye.
Well, so far in the first hour, it's been raining on and off. Nothing too hard. Kind of a neat looking church there.
Right next to the Fox Theater, world famous.
It's starting to rain again.
We're rapidly approaching the condemned stadium.
What stadium?
The condemned stadium.
Oh,
Condemned by the wealthy mothers.
yeah, today they're supposed to have a game with the Red Sox. And I
How
gotta,
appropriate.
yeah, but I gotta believe the weather is gonna play a havoc on that game. approaching the Allegheny Mountain Tunnel. This will be better than a ride at Disneyland.
We're gonna need warp speed in 15 seconds. 5, 4,
Pennsylvania Turnpike was called the Tunnel Highway when it opened in October 1940. The Allegheny Mountain Tunnel is 1.2 miles long, and in 1991, only 4 of the original 7 tunnels were in use along the entire Pennsylvania Turnpike system.
nice stale air under here.
Yeah. Now we're still on the Pennsylvania Turnpike.
It's 420 miles into the trip.
Wasn't that neat?
Why are your lights on? Well, you told me to put them on. Welcome to Maryland. 7:01 p.m. 486 miles.
486 into the trip.
Yep.
We're at I-70 going south.
Looking for I-81.
Yeah, we're almost to the West Virginia border. I don't know if we can see this with the... That's
516 miles at 7:30 p.m.
Hit the West Virginia border at 7:30 p.m. And right directly into the sun.
We finally found a state that has a 65 mile an hour speed limit. How about that?
Yeah, we're gonna pan over, get the mowing out. How's it going so far, Bob?
Just fine, Coach. I get that sun out of my face, I'm gonna be all set. There we go. Holding up well under the stress.
We're still in I-81, heading south in West Virginia right now, heading for the Virginia border,
Behind the tree there. Yep.
which is right there.
7:54 p.m. 542.5 miles into the trip.
We arrived at our campsite in the dark and had to set up our tent by flashlight. I could hear the sound of nearby rushing water and figured we were very close to a river. It had been an exhausting day, and within a half hour of settling into our tent, Bob and I were fast asleep. Day 1 was over. First day of our trip had gone precisely as scheduled. We were roughly 600 miles from home and in great position to visit our first site in the morning when Jefferson's Monticello opened at 8 o'clock. I hope you've enjoyed this first episode. Please subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, and feel free to leave us a comment. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Spirits of Independence. So long.